of the Board of Education to order for Monday, August 26th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, all board members are present. There is no one here for the open forum. And next I'm going to ask for an approval of the agenda. So for the agenda, okay, all in favor. I need a motion and a second.
So made.
By Director Bullion.
Yep. Second.
Second by Director Olstad. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes 7-0. The first item on the agenda is the discussion of the level 3 grievance by the PLS FAA. Board action is requested. You all have the information or sent the information in your packets for the discussion. I need a motion and a second before we get started.
So made.
By Director Olstad.
Second.
Second by Director Burnick. Okay, do we have anyone from the other side?
Chair Franz, no, this is the meeting where you review the written recommendation for the board to take action on.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you guys want to speak first, or the executive committee gives their recommendation first.
I think the committee can give its recommendation first, and then we can answer questions if needed.
Okay. So the executive committee met with council and the bargaining unit, as well as with the administration. And the executive committee recommends that the board deny the request made by the union and the individual. I'm going to open up for any discussion and questions. We have legal counsel here and administration here ready to respond to any questions. There's no questions?
I have a question. Their contract, is that, it's not settled, the new year contract? Or when is it up for renewal?
Director Atkinson, the current contract continues until we reach settlement on the new contract. We have reached settlement. They have voted and we're bringing forward that memo to the September 9th board meeting. After that's voted, then it'll be considered fully ratified for us to move forward with that implementation. In that, the settlement that the memo will be coming forward to the board, the language in question throughout this grievance remains the same. There are no changes.
There's no changes to the language. And I know that the question, I attended that executive committee meeting, which is super helpful. As an observer, and so are there other contracts? Do we have similar language in other contracts throughout the district?
Director Atkinson, can I ask for clarification when you say similar language? Which section are you referring to, or are you referring to all this?
The one that they're disputing.
The two in dispute. The months is unique to the administrative assistance contract. We don't have other contracts that have different positions, assignments that are based off of different months. For example, our teacher's contract is 185 days. Our principal's contract is 260. This contract is unique in the fact that it has that month section for the assignments that they're assigned for their position. The unpaid leave language is not unique. That is very similar in multiple of our contracts.
Any kind of, so sorry, can you give any kind of reasoning as to recommending the denial?
Take that. So looking at the contract language, I think is the easiest place to deny it. The contract only references unpaid leave in the context of that's something that the board has discretion to offer. So it's not something that you're required to do. And then the interpretation that the union has been trying to apply to the benefits language is challenging to square with how we approach an assignment versus somebody taking leave. So an employee who has a 9-month assignment is not a 12-month employee who has 3 months of unpaid leave. Their assignment is 9 months. We expect them to be there for 9 months, except for the days we allow them to take off. And their interpretation really treats it like a minimum of 9 months, but then any employee who works beyond that, regardless of their amount of unpaid leave, would continue to receive benefits. I don't think there's any indication that that was the board's intent in approving the contract, and I doubt it was even the union's intent to create that type of distinction where 9 months is a threshold, and so long as you're there, they receive benefits. Because that approach would make it challenging to then, if we had a 12-month employee and they only work 6 months, we would say they worked less than 12 months, or worked less than 9 months, so they're not receiving benefits. So their approach sort of blurs the line between an assignment and what the expectation is for the employees. So the district's interpretation that, you have, as long as you work what you are assigned to work, you receive full benefits. But once you dip below that, you have daily adjustments based on the days that we expected you to be there, because one of the reasons to grant that type of leave is the cost savings to you. So we think that makes sense both in terms of the language and the intent behind the contract.
Are there any other questions? Are we ready for a vote? All right, with regards to level 3 grievance, all in favor?
Aye.
Is this a roll call vote? No, you're all looking at me.
We're voting to deny it though, correct?
I mean, yes, I'm sorry, all in favor of denial.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
in favor of denial?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes 7-0. All right, so next on the agenda is policy 522, Title IX, sex non-discrimination policy. We are asked for board action on this. This is not a discussion, so I need a motion and a second.
So made.
By Director Bullion. Second for anybody?
So made.
Oh, sorry, by Director Olstad. Okay, handing this over to Director Herman.
As members of the board, this is one of the policy changes that falls under our district policy to allow for one reading and vote, because it's based off of legal changes that have been implemented as effective as August 1st. I am recommending that we move forward with our legal counsel's recommendation for this policy to limit to only include what we legally have to include, to make sure that we cover those bases, but we don't expand upon procedures within the policy that could make us out of compliance should there be future changes moving forward. So that's why you do see a very shortened version of this policy, knowing that statutory requirements supersede our district procedures regardless. And we have our attorney here to approach any question or answering questions as well.
Okay, I'm going to open up to discussion. Do you have any questions?
I actually like the way it was written, because I know that there's a lot of outstanding lawsuits and regarding this. So I really appreciate the way it was written. Of doing what it's meant to do.
Anybody else?
I just had a couple comments, but it was just in numbering. It was literally just in numbering, and I'm trying to find it. Like, I have it in my printout board packet. It is under determination whether sex discrimination occurred under letter G. If you go down, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it says 4, 5.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bullion. I see which page you're referring to, and I will make that adjustment.
And I had one comment / question. The language in bullet point number 3 and 5 of that same, well, it was 5, it will be turned to 6. So where it says not impose discipline on a respondent in number 3. And then in number, what will be 6, not discipline a party. I'm wondering if there is a way to turn that into affirmative language, like the next, starting with a not, it confuses me. Again, it's just grammatical, but I feel like any way we can be less confusing, the better. And if there's reasoning behind it starting with the not, because I had to read back and forth, like, okay, this is, it was just confusing to me. So those were my only comments on the whole policy.
Can I address that?
Please.
So that language actually comes directly from the regulations, where the district has to say that it will do the things in 1, 2, 4, 5, and that it will not do the things in 3 and what will be 6. So that's why that language is a little bit awkward there. We could potentially revise it to put everything the school district will do together, and then do a separate heading that says the district will not, and then put those two under it, if it makes sense, and that's what the board wants to do.
It reads fine for me from the not, especially with the exact wording. I understand that the grammar of that. So basically, the district will not discipline, or the party witness or other party will not be subject to discipline for making a false statement or whatever. So I get it. I don't really care either way.
I don't honestly either. It's just, I was just sharing my confusion.
It's understandable.
From the will of the board, are we comfortable with leaving it as is, or would the will of the board like us to make those adjustments?
I have a clarifying question. This is normally reviewed every single year, especially because of the volatility of some of the statutory stuff that goes on, legislative stuff that goes on with regards to this. I assume it's okay and we can take a look at it again last year based upon knowing that it's going to be reviewed annually. That is still a correct statement?
I'm trying to pull that up right now, Chair Franz, on if this is a required annual review or not.
Well, if she's looking that up, it's possible that this will be back before you within a year anyway, depending on how things go in appellate courts too. And we've been sending out updates that certainly Dr. Thomas and Executive Director Herman receive. So we'll keep you updated when things happen.
Dr. Herman, will this be reviewed again next year? Or
Sorry, I'm struggling to find it on our tracking sheet, so I will confirm and get back to the board. But again, as with any of our policies, whether they're on our district policy review for every 3 years, we would review should any legal changes be brought forward that we need to do an immediate review around.
Emily, it is an annual.
It is, or is not? It is. Thank you.
And then I just have a question. I know we were all in a meeting since 4 o'clock, but we did receive an email, and I don't know if that impacts the policy or not. I don't know if you're aware of the email, because I don't know if you're on it.
Is that the one?
Is it Title IX?
It's what's called Title IX, so
We
that's
have
why I didn't
received,
know.
we have received that.
It does if
emails.
it impacts the policy at all, so.
It does not
Okay.
impact the policy. We did receive that email, was provided to us so that we can make sure we review it in case we did need to bring forward anything for today, and it does not impact our policy and how we would implement it. Okay, thank you.
any other questions? Okay, are we ready for a vote on the policy with page, I'm not sure what page this is, but on section G with the numerical adjustments to make it in line? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes 7-0. All right, on to personnel items. And again, I need a motion and a second on this. By Director Olstad.
Nope.
Pardon me. Oh, by Director Atkinson.
First.
And then Olstad? Sure. Okay. Oh, don't fight over it. Okay. All right. And I'm going to hand this over to Director Herman.
Apologies, I'm just pulling it up right now. So is this in regards to the candidates for employment, resignation, leaves of absences?
All of it through the start of D, through the Normandale contract. Normally it would be on a consent agenda, but because it's extra, I wasn't sure if you had anything to point out or add.
I do not have anything to point out on 7C1, 7C2, 7C3. As for 7C4, as you are aware from communications, we had some staffing adjustments that occurred administratively that we're making recommendation to place Dr. Warner as the interim assistant director of teaching and learning and district improvement under a posted position, and then moving Lisa Manders, who's currently the elementary dean, to the interim Westwood Sage principal for the year. And the costs will be covered by professional development funds and a cost-neutral movement to ensure we have the proper administration and positions to start off the school year. And then for the 7C5, again, as you're aware, we've had some administrative changes and an administrative assistant change in our operational services department. We're making the recommendation to eliminate the assistant director of operational services position, eliminate the administrative assistant to the operations finance position, and add a 1.0 operational services supervisor position with some changes in how they're covering those services. We feel is best to make those changes for the cost savings approach and still be able to have the necessary staff to get the work done for this school year.
Are there any questions for Director Herman?
I have a question about the new positions. There's a couple positions listed as new positions. One's the ECFE assistant, Edgewood, I believe, and then the other one is ECFE assistant, well, another one, Edgewood, new position. Can you help the board understand what's driving the need for those positions, and is it like from where it's coming out of budget, or has they been budgeted for?
Dr. Atkinson, can you help direct me? Are you referring to the candidates that have been hired or an additional staffing request?
Nope, I believe it's the one that's have been hired.
Okay, I understand. I believe
They say new position behind them on their name.
I believe that you're referring to the recent additions that we brought forward for additional staffing. In those positions, we've had increases in enrollment in our early learning programming and additional classes that have been receiving extra participation in. I think it was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday evening or morning and evening. I can't remember exactly the days there, but those are directly linked to those additional staffing requests that were approved for those enrollment increases in those programs.
Okay. Any other questions? Sorry, go ahead.
The administrative changes, so these are for this school year. So these will come back next year in terms of any movement, if there is movement.
Director Olstad, these are only being approved for a one-year interim basis. We would need to determine actionable steps in the spring to bring forward to you for any sort of permanent move or not, and then based off of that, we would make those adjustments, whether we're moving forward with them permanently or if we're moving back to a previous model for staffing in these positions. So these are one-year only positions.
Any other questions? Hearing no other questions, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Okay, and the last one on here is the Normandale contract that was taken off of last board's board meetings agenda because we are still missing a signature, I believe. So I need a motion and a second on this.
So made.
By Director Bullion,
Second.
second by Director Crosby. If there's any questions.
I just have a question. Not seeing, I didn't go back and relook at the original contract, but are there any major changes from the previous contract to this contract, or
No,
is it just a renewal?
it's our annual renewal, Director Atkinson. One of the things I'll share with the board, though, that we're going to explore moving forward. This year, we have seen a significant, well, for last school year, we saw a significant surge in PSEO enrollment, which is great for our students. Was not something that we anticipated from a budgetary standpoint, and we lose part of our ADM as they go off to post-secondary. And one of the pushes that I would like to explore as we partner with our higher ed folks is ensuring that we are getting the return on the value when our students are leaving. And so putting some additional accountability factors into the contracts. So if we, now again, I'm not saying this is official, but like, do we feel it's a great value to send someone to college and they are getting D's and F's? Or should we be looking at different thresholds? And so those are some of the things that Tammy and I will explore as we renegotiate for subsequent years moving forward to ensure that our students are getting the education that they deserve for the resources that are leaving our district. So just want to brief the board that will be coming. As we learn more, I'll be briefing the board more on that.
I'm very curious to hear that, having a parent who has had a couple kids go through the PSEO program. I think the biggest challenge is that they are college students.
Mhm.
And so how do you, like, what is your vision for that? Like, from an accountability standpoint? Because I agree with you 100%. We can't
Well,
just have kids taking classes and failing them, but yet
Right.
on the flip side of it, the district knows nothing, the parent knows nothing.
Right.
Because the college doesn't tell them
Right.
anything.
I
and
think
there's
that's
no
something, but that's
accountability.
part of
So
the
I'm curious to hear what you-
contractual negotiations. So we'll have to explore that with the higher ed institutions. But essentially, you know, one of the things that I would like to explore is what does it look like if we were saying we'll give full contract rate for C's and above and negotiate rates of pay based upon other areas of performance that below a C. Do they get 2/3? Do they get a third? You know, those are some of the things that we'll have to explore. So there's nothing set, but I just wanted to let you know.
Who picks up the parent would pick that up, or?
Well, no, this is something that I would
Or
be
the
pushing,
institution?
that they wouldn't get the, they wouldn't.
Which
They wouldn't
then
get the full
there's risk of
tuition.
Grade inflation,
Right.
of course.
Right.
I know
So,
that's
so
something
again, we're gonna explore that. We don't know what that will entail, but I just want to ensure that our students, to your point, when they leave us to go to post-secondary, experience X, it ought to be a great return for that student. And you're right, we don't have accountability in that professor's classroom and things of that nature. But if we do have some latitude to broker language within a contract that puts some expectation around performance-driven contracts versus just a blanket contract, those are some of the things that are of interest that I think ultimately serves our students
Yeah.
best.
How does concurrent enrollment fit in that conversation? So we offer, concurrent enrollment classes at the high school that are the college experience in the high school are the dollars follow the kids to our teacher in the high school.
Full funding for them.
Yeah,
Right.
right, so could we explore options to get more concurrent enrollment classes?
There's ways to look at CIS as a higher weight factor and even kind of a recommendation factor. Then it goes down to our ability of sections that we can offer because they have to meet a certain threshold of certification to be able to teach that course.
Yeah.
And so if we need more teachers, then we have to find ways to get more certification.
It's an art.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
again, nothing set in
Yeah.
stone, but just want to let the board know this is something that we're going to explore, particularly with our new strat plan centering on that outcome of excellence for our kids. To the extent that we control and support that, we will look at that.
Okay, so let's, because we're going off topic on the agenda here, I want to reserve the right for Dr. Thomas to bring this up at a future study session when it's actually been fully vetted and we actually know legally what we can do and what we can't do, because there's a lot involved in that. So I'd like to stick it to the, stick with the contract and make sure that we get that done at this time before we move on to study session.
I did have one question about the contract.
Oh, okay.
At least I think it's about the contract. Correct me if I'm wrong though. So with these classes that, is it a certain track? Or is it, I'm looking at Normandale's full class offerings and choosing? Or is it for, okay, so it's no
open.
matter.
It's an open book.
Yeah, okay,
Entire registration guide is available.
okay.
Okay, any other questions on the contract? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes 7-0. At this point, we're going to adjourn the meeting and transition to a study session, so I need a motion and a second to adjourn.
So made.
By Director Bullion. Second by Director Velazquez. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes 7-0. We are adjourned. We'll take a few minutes for people to take an extra break and then transition at 6:32. How about that? Exactly. On the line.
Tammy, your flashlight is on.
All right, now I call the study session to order. And before we go into the purpose and agenda, I am going to read and ask the board for a moment of silence for the tragic news that we received on a family that is a member of the Prior Lake Savage area community. I would like to ask for a moment of silence in the sharing of the tragic news of the passing of Dawa Norbu, a 4th grade student from Jeffers Pond on August 15th. Dawa and his family were involved in a car accident which also claimed the life of his father, Tenzin Drukjul, his sister, Tenzin Choden, who is a 6th grader at Hidden Oaks, currently remains hospitalized. So please join me in a moment of silence for this family. Okay, with that, I appreciate that. Moving on to the purpose and agenda by Dr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair France, Board of Directors. Tonight, for our study session, it's our opportunity, as always with the board, to have deeper discussion on key topics that ultimately may come to you for a vote, so that this is the time for us to really roll up our sleeves together and get into some of those. We'll have the board communication protocol. We'll have some updates on our summer and ESY programming, which is a great, fun summer for many of our students. Many of the senior leaders here tonight will also talk a little bit about our collective strive for excellence, really centering our strategic plan work together, and then provide several financial updates by way of our audit, levy certification, and enrollment, and then closing out with a proclamation. And then we've got a couple of policies that will be coming to the board for review. Policy 506 on student discipline, 606 and 606.5 around textbook, instructional materials, and library materials, and then policy 722 on public data requests. So with that, Chair France, turn it back to you.
Okay, for the first item of the agenda was something from the April study session, which is a discussion of the board communication protocol. The actual topic was the 3-day, in most cases, that the chair would provide a response back to people who emailed the school board within, well, actually, in most cases, within 3 business days was the way it was phrased. So I understand that there's a need for the discussion of that board communication protocol. So I open it up to the board for that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason that we brought this up back in, I think it was April or timeframe, whatever it was, doesn't really matter, is that we do have, and I brought copies for all the board directors if they'd like, because it was a document that I was referencing when we had, when I brought this up to the board is that we do have email communication protocols for our board, and not only, I don't know if you guys want to have these. I don't know if you had it, I just thought I'd provide them so that we received these when we had our training in January of 23. I'll pass this along. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay. I have to share a copy. Yeah, thank you. So I had my copy handy. I keep it in my binder. And so, you know, it really just goes through like, how do we communicate with our families? And given our new strategic plan and our based on transparency and engagement with the parents, I think that this becomes even more important. And so I understand there was a change made by Chair France in May to change the bounce back email in order to really solve a problem. But when I look back, this was created in 2016 by the board. So my challenge was like, I wanted to see a full board discussion around this. Because at the end of the day, the message that goes, when someone takes the time to email the board and they get the bounce back email, and then their question is, you know, are they gonna get a response? Where does it get directed to? Whatever. But the way that it was originally written versus how it was changed, I have some concerns with what it was changed to, because my concern is that, and this actually was a real life experience where someone had reached out to our board and got the new bounce back, and because it's signed Chair France's name, the original bounce back did not have a chair's name to it. It just had said, thank you for contacting the board, and it's auto-generated, and it's been sent to all board members, and in most cases, within 3 business days, the school board chair, writing on behalf of the entire board, will reply with a specific response to your message. Thanks again for your email. As if it was coming from either administration or from our whole entire board. Right now, the bounce back that was changed, not only does it appears that it's coming from our chair. So people are saying, oh, I got this really vague response back from your chair. And I said to this PUE member, well, that's not the response. Like, that's just the auto response. So it's confusing in the fact that they're thinking that that's the response that they're getting, and it's a very general response. The other thing, that the way that the message was changed is now it says, if we believe, I don't quote me because I don't know if I have it in front of me, but if we believe it's necessary to respond, we'll respond. And I just feel like as a board, if somebody takes the time to send an email into the board, I personally believe they do deserve a response, and I believe it should be in a timely manner. So I think having those protocols in place, there's a reason why we have them in place, and so that's why I wanted to, I think that's why the full board supported this conversation, to come to the board for a conversation, and we can talk about it. And then my other concern is when the chair responds on behalf of the board, I think it's really important that the whole board is CC'd on the email so that we can follow the resolution. If the email comes into the full board, we should be able to follow the resolution of how it was, and I understand mistakes happen and stuff, but that's part of the protocols as well. It's written in the protocols. So I kind of think it should go back to the way it was. I didn't really have an issue with the way our protocols were written, and I'm not sure why it was even changed. And maybe you can share with more why it was changed in May, why you made the change with Christy.
First of all, as was explained over email, that this is the board chair's decision. It has been changed by other board chairs it's never voted on, it's not included in policy. and it is included in policy that the board chair does respond on behalf of the board. Now, I wasn't part of the board when apparently you said it was created in 2016, but I know there was previous versions and it has never been voted on. So it is, I'm not even sure, I never received it in training. But the bottom line is that the message was actually created and changed by various chairs per their discretion.
Do you have a reference to that? Like, do you have any documentation of that? Because I thought it would be documented, the changes are documented right here on the document.
Well, you see, I don't control Christie's version of
template?
this.
No,
Director
so Martha, or whoever updates this document, does a really great job of saying it was created November 22, 2016. That's when it was created. And then it was updated November 29, 2022. I believe that was because our email changed to plsds.org. And so I understand that you said you believe that that's your authority to do that. I will disagree. I think that this is a message that comes from the entire board, and I'm glad that it's here that we can have a discussion about it this evening.
So your ask is to remove the chair's name from the auto response?
My ask is to go back to what we had, because I personally would like to understand what drove the change. Why was the auto response changed? I don't see this as any, why was it changed? I mean, this has been in place since 2016. Why did it have to be changed?
I don't believe the same message was in place since 2016, nor was the same format
I
in
think it
place.
was, Chair Francis.
Because
it's
it
on the
has
document.
gone through this whole document has gone through various permutations according to if a board chair wanted to use it or whatever. For instance, at the school board meeting, the rules, I know came into play later on under, I believe it was Chair Nelson. I know that there's other things in here about the director of communication creating the message on behalf of the chair. That has not been done by every chair. And then the hierarchy at the very end, contacting staff with questions or concerns. And you were provided this in email, by the way. This is the hierarchy that is also not as detailed, but is also referenced in policy for all board members to go by that hierarchy, so we are not interrupting administrative normal process flow.
I read your email, and I'm just saying respectfully, I disagree, so.
I understand you disagree, so I'm gonna open it up to the board. Now, the new message is quite longer. I did work with Christy on it to make sure it was more apropos to the type of messages that the board is getting. I have not received any negative feedback on it whatsoever, if anything positive. So, but if you received it from your constituents, Director Atkinson, then that's worthy
One
of.
person was confused about.
Okay.
Can you also help understand why the change was made? That's what I think this discussion is here for this evening, is to understand why was the change, why did you feel it was necessary to make the change?
If I remember correctly, after it was brought up in April, I feel like we, even at the table, we had a email test to see the response. And I think that what prompted, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what prompted the change was it being brought up at that board meeting, study session. I think it was study session, because I feel like we were here. And it was the 3-day concern. And if I remember correctly, the 3-day was the concern, and given work schedule and all the things, there's, sometimes it can't be responded to in 3 days. And so I believe, I shouldn't be speaking.
No, you're fine.
My belief is that it was prompted from that study session discussion about the 3 days, and then you worked with Christy. I'll stop.
That's my recollection as well. I thought there was a concern concern that you weren't answering timely, and that the 3-day number was something that we should be looking at. That was my recollection.
Yeah.
That's the first and only time I recall this conversation. Down.
Yeah, and per policy, the board does respond, the board chair does respond on behalf of the board. And as I looked at the message, and I think all board chairs have had some issues responding within 3 business days, because some of them require to be sent to administration for questions, clarifications. Sometimes the administrator's on vacation, they can't get back to us right away, et cetera, which is normal because they're inundated with themselves with their own jobs. So I worked with Christy and came up with a new message that I feel was more indicative to say, hey, listen, if this message requires an administrator may reply to you. I also stated if the question, could you bring it up? Because we did send it out to the whole board, the new message.
I'm trying to find it.
I'm looking through all my emails. It
was sent out by Christy.
Yeah, it was in the May timeframe. I thought I had it printed out, to be honest with you.
Because unfortunately, we email ourselves, we do not get the automated message.
Yeah, and my concern is that that message
Mhm.
is a message that comes from the whole board, not just from the chair. And so I understand it is your responsibility to respond on behalf of the board, but that message comes from the entire board. And so the messaging that is in that language was never discussed at this board table. And so I think I personally feel that it's respectful to bring it here, to have the conversation, to make sure that we all align on, is that message the message we should be sending to our community members when they email in? Are we all aligned on that message? I personally have some concerns with it, but I think it's great that we can talk about it and make sure that we are all aligned. Did you find it?
I found it, yeah,
Oh,
so I can
wonderful.
read it.
Yeah, why don't you read it?
Thank you for contacting the PLSAS School Board. We want to let you know that all school board directors have received your email. We value and appreciate your input and are grateful for your engagement with our district. Paragraph. If your email requires a response or if you requested one, I will get back to you as the school board chair. If needed, I may also forward your email to the appropriate administrator to ensure your questions or concerns are properly addressed. We appreciate your engagement and thank you for your support. Sincerely, Mary France, PLSAS Board Chair.
So thank you for that. My concern is, the very first part is the same. When you go to that second paragraph, it says, if your email requires a response. So who determines, like in the way it was written previously, it said that you will, in most cases, within 3 days, that the school board chair writing on behalf of the entire board will reply with a specific response to your message. And now it's changed to, who determines if they require a response? I mean, I don't have an issue taking out the 3 days on the original message, but my concern is that if your email requires response, I would think that everybody that emails in would require a response. And then lastly, it has your name signature on it when that whole message is coming from the board. The bounce back comes from the board, not specifically the chair, which is creating a little bit of confusion about whether or not that is the response, or should somebody actually expect a different response. Those are my two concerns.
Okay, so that's different than the original topic. So basically.
It's not, it's board
you're
communication protocols.
Okay. So policy states that the board chair responds on behalf of the board. That's in policy. So the first question I have is, do you want to bring that up to change the policy?
No, because no, I never had an issue with that. That's your authority or your
Okay.
responsibility, correct.
Considering the initial message was never voted on by the board and it has changed.
We don't know, it was in 2016. I went back, I saw it was talked about at a study session. I did not see it at a board vote, but it was discussed at a study session, like we're doing right here currently.
Actually, I believe it started at a retreat, but the policy, so the question is so here's the thing. So with another board chair and with previous board chairs, they've always responded on behalf of the board, and they had the right to modify, change, or whatever this protocol, however they wanted to.
Disagree, but okay.
Okay, do you want to stop there then, because you disagree with that?
No, I disagree that the chair has the authority to change the message, because you went and directed staff to do something, And I can tell you, if I, as a board member, went and directed staff to do something, I wouldn't be sitting here today. So that is my concern, is what gives the right for any board director to go direct staff, which was our communications director, to do something when this is a board, this is the message that we are, as a board, sending to our community. And so that should become a board discussion. So I'm glad that we're having this discussion here today.
Well, I think she was trying to, if I could just interject, I felt like she was trying to solve a concern
Then it should have come to the
prior
agenda.
to, we couldn't get it on an agenda fast enough. Like, there's just, sometimes you just have to solve something quickly. And she also probably, it is her responsibility as the board chair to respond. It is.
Yeah.
With Amy's, or Director Crosby's, and Director Nelson. So I think it would give her the purview to be able to do that in the period of time that it needed to be taken care of. Now, in moving forward, I would love to hear exactly what you'd like it to say, so that we can all be super clear, and then we can all say, oh, I like that or I don't.
I honestly had no problem with the way it was written, and if we want to take out the within 3 business days, I actually looked because MSBA has their school board handbook, and in that handbook, they have a little bit of guidance on there, but then I went and actually pulled another school district's handbook to see how do they handle communication protocols. And theirs says within 72 hours you will receive a response. So it's very similar to what we had. Now, I honestly understand there's schedules, you have to connect with admin, I respect all that. So could we say within a reasonable time frame? I mean,
I think
in most cases, within the school board chair will reply versus if,
Within 3 business days.
I'm very concerned with if your email requires a response, because who determines if it requires a
Well,
response?
some really don't. I mean, some are like a compliment.
But respectfully, I disagree, and I would
Thank
say
you for your
that,
compliment.
thank you for reaching out to board and showing and engaging with our community, or engaging
Not a
with us.
response says that though.
that's why I did it that way, because some of them don't, some of them are coming in with a comment. Some of them are just coming in and, some of them actually just ask about something for a student, and then we immediately have to send it off because, but here's the thing, my concern is, number one, in the history of this district that I am aware of, the policy says the board chair responds and is responsible for representing the board in the communications to the community. So if we start saying that the board chair responses need to go to the board for approval, do we want to,
No, I
well,
didn't hear that.
okay, well, that's what I'm hearing, because, so I, under my authority as chair, I went in and changed it to be more direct. Now, other school board chairs have changed and made their own changes. Some of them use it, some of them don't. It's been, and there's other parts of this protocol too. So I'm trying to understand what the end result here is.
So can I just step in a second?
Yeah.
We've heard both discuss this. Can the 5 of us talk a little bit about maybe a potential outcome? Because I'm guessing we're somewhere in the middle, guessing, maybe not, but we'll find out. And we've been here since 4 o'clock talking about us.
Oh,
We need to talk about not us.
Yes.
yeah.
I
And
agree,
so
100%.
let's the 5 of us just say your piece and let's move forward.
Mhm.
Anyone want to go first?
I understand where that line about if
If your email requires.
if your email requires a response. And I understand the feeling with that in terms of, does it feel dismissive? And now, everybody getting this might not feel that way at all. They're just like, I just wanted to email and get my thoughts out, and getting this means that you got it, everybody's read it, I'm good to go. Other people might look at that and go, what do you mean if? I understand that. I can understand where that is coming from. I think adding, so that's number 1. Number 2, I think, Mary, adding your name, I actually like that because I think it personalizes it. So it's not just a crank it out, automated response from the school board. It's from Mary, school board chair. I actually like that because I think it personalizes it.
Can I just add that everyone still gets the email though, and we can still
Yes.
respond.
Yes.
Regardless of
On
what's
top
said out
of
there.
this,
Right.
yes, correct.
Okay.
So I think it's, what I'm hearing, it's kind of that one part on the second paragraph. And I think we can very easily say something, even if it's just softening the language a little bit. I think it's, because I think you can kind of say the same thing, but soften it, right? Because again, not every email might need a response or whatever. But I think it's something where we just, I don't know, soften the language a little bit. I need some glasses, I'm
Any other
sorry.
ideas? Softening
So
the
those are the two things that I saw. Still can't see.
Sorry.
Try these. Pass around the glasses. Oh, yeah.
Well, those are cute on you.
Do you have any input?
Yeah, to Director Olstad's point, I might submit a comment and might not even have any sort of an indication or inclination that I'm gonna get a response beyond the bounce back. But if I see that language that says, if it warrants a response, I'll respond, or somebody will respond. That might be inflammatory to me to go, oh no, now you're giving me a response. You were giving me a response because I feel dismissed just by the language. So it's that, to Director Atkinson's point, who makes that determination of whether a response is provided or not? And I would probably even go further to say that even if it's not the chair, maybe the chair has a designee, and that should be incorporated. I, as the chair, or my designee will respond on our behalf.
Yeah, I like that.
that too.
Or my
So-
designee.
We've had
Or a
emails to
designee.
the board that don't want a response, and they just send in a message saying, you know, I hope you vote for this, that sort of thing. Christy Mussman receives all board emails. Dr. Thomas receives all board emails. The entire board receives all board emails, and I do. So if there is a reason for a response, we have 9 voices looking at this to indicate that. But I was trying, and I'm not trying to be defensive about this, but it was really hard because what was happening is that even if someone sent in a response, sent in a message that clearly didn't ask a question or anything like that, they were just sending something into us, I was having to respond to every single one, just saying thank you for, after the email said thank you for sending a board, and then I'm resending just that statement with nothing else. So that's why that was in there. But if you truly feel that the board chair, Director Mussman, Director Thomas, and all 7 of you who also get this email are unable to determine if the email actually receives a response, should receive a response, or if the feedback from the communications director and the superintendent and myself determine that it doesn't receive a response, are we still supposed to respond? Or are we, that's my question. So when I actually drafted this with the help of the director of communications, that was what was going through my head. And for the most part, almost everybody did receive a response. But some of them went directly to the superintendent. Some of them went directly to, let's say, the director of operations and facilities. Some of them went directly to an administrator, like the stuff about prom was responded and sent it, directly to the high school. So that's why I'm wondering how, if we soften the language, or do we still have to provide another response to it? Because then, by default, we're sending a response. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm a little
Yeah.
confused.
I think, the only thing I'll say, having been in those shoes before, is that if it says Dr. Edwards and the board's copied on, Dr. Edwards is the
Mhm.
person responding, he was addressed.
Correct.
If it's outside of that scope, then the chair would respond. Granted,
And then we
sometimes
copy
it
it
was
too.
just a
Mhm.
thanks, you know. Also, more emails to send, but in my experience, not that that's the proper experience, but Director Burnett, do you have thoughts on this?
No, I think we were trying to solve, back to, it was just the setting expectations of the 3 days, is I think where it all started from.
And some level of redundancy. So there are sometimes statements written in whatever you all have given a couple of examples. And I'm wondering if the softening portion, Director Olstad, is, first of all, if it's just a statement that I wrote into the board, the automatic, thank you for writing to the school board, that piece that gets to that statement, kind of a email. I'm wondering if however Director Olstad said it, the softening of the language is, if you've made a request or require additional follow-up, I or someone from administration will respond back to you within a reasonable time. That way you're catching the statements of saying thank you, and they know if they've made a request, or if there's something deeper, or you will know because when you read it, or whomever, that, oh, there's a request in here, that's gonna require some follow-up. So you're just stating the fact, if you've made a request or require additional follow-up, we're not saying who will determine that, it's just there. I think the reader will be able to determine.
Okay.
Then, something along those lines. If
It
that,
gives you a little bit of wiggle room there.
yeah, gives you some latitude, and I
And more
think,
time if you need it, too.
yeah, so.
Or if you.
And I think that would capture any kind of thing that can get written beyond a simple statement. It could be a deep substantive inquiry, it could be a data request, it could be, whatever. But then I think we're all covered, both on the admin side and the board side.
Okay, so it would read, thank you for contacting the PLSAS School Board.
I like the first line as it is.
We want to let you know that all school board directors have received your email. We value and appreciate your input and are grateful for your engagement with our district. If you've made a request or require additional follow-up, I, as the chair or designee, will respond.
There you go.
Or if
Accordingly.
needed, I might also
Accordingly.
forward your email to the appropriate administrator.
And then we appreciate your engagement. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, Mary Grants.
Boom.
Slight adjustment. Are people comfortable with that? Sure. Okay. Good.
Next item on the agenda is oversight of operations, the summer program report, including targeted services and special education by Director of Student Support Services Chuka and Director of Communications Education, Director Dow.
Stand to the sides. Stand off to the sides so we don't block you.
Well, works. All right. Well, good evening, Chair Franz, Board of Directors, Dr. Thomas. We're here to talk to you a little about summer because, as you know, schools don't sleep in the summer. So we're going to talk a little bit about all the great things that we did and all the students that we were able to support this summer. I'll start with the special ed portion, and then Dr. Dahl will take over from there. I don't know how this worked. I had it going. Okay. So first is extended school year, and I know each year I've talked to you about what that means. And these are IEP-driven services that are directly from an individualized education plan for a student with an IEP. There's different qualification requirements to get there, so this wouldn't be anybody can sign up for it. It's an IEP team decision. And we had about 50 kids qualify for extended school year services, and we held services at early childhood, at Red Tail Ridge, and at the high school. And to support those 50 kids, we had about 30 staff in and out as well. Our early childhood team never sleeps. Birth to 3 is year-round, so they don't have summers off. They work throughout the whole year. They continue to provide services. And at the secondary level, we didn't just do ESY for our center-based students in June. We also provided embedded ESY supports within targeted services by partnering with Joel and his team, and we were able to support 6 students right within targeted services in June and July. And in addition to that, we did have students that chose to go to targeted services and they had para support in their IEP. We also provided para support so they could successfully participate in targeted services. All right, non-special ed. This is run through Bridges by Credit Recovery for our high school students who are behind in credits. There are about 350 kids, or just under that worked on credit recovery this summer at Bridges. We have 2 ways they can do that. They can come in person, or they can do a summer independent study. And that ran basically from June until the middle of August there. All right.
That's why I gave you the clicker.
Yeah, and I'm really good at it.
So I'll begin talking a little bit about our summer targeted services program. You can kind of read the who, what, why, and how we operate this program, but it's really to help keep our students engaged over the summer. You know, if they may be falling behind grade level slightly, these students are essentially, they're selected by their classroom teachers to say, hey, this would be a great opportunity for you. It's completely funded, so the students don't pay anything to participate in the program. It's based off of our ADM and seat hours throughout the summer. We run a 4-week program, Monday through Thursday, and we ran out of 2 sites this summer. Go to the next slide. The elementary program, we actually ran out of 3 sites, including our middle school. But the elementary program, we ran out of 2 sites. We ran our summer lit camp again this year, which is a curriculum-based program that we started, I think, 3 years ago. So this was our 3rd year utilizing that program. In addition to the summer lit, we also do a lot of work around mathematics. So the 2 main focus areas of the summer targeted services program are around literature, reading, and the mathematics. This one is for grades 1 through 5. This was our last year that we were able to have some funding that remained to provide transportation for students. So that will be a hurdle we're going to try to overcome this next summer. That funding will no longer exist. So we're going to really try and find a way, because we found over the last 2 years, by being able to provide that transportation, our numbers really increase. So we know that that's important to get our students there to help them be successful.
So I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
I want to make sure I got that right.
Mm-hmm.
So kids qualify because of their academic need,
Yes.
and the state does not fund transportation?
Transportation specifically is not funded, no.
Thank you.
So when you say it was funded this year, it's because we did it.
Well, we had some dollars remaining through COVID, I believe, yeah. And
Okay.
it now is out. It ran out after this year, ESSA dollars. And this was the last year that funding was available.
Wow.
Can we expand on that a little bit more? So, I don't, because I feel that same way. So it was funded with ESSER dollars before that. Was it funded?
No.
No. So this was a hurdle before.
Yes.
During COVID, it ended up being funded with the ESSER funds, and now we're going back to.
Yes, but we are going to start exploring other opportunities that we might be able to utilize to still provide transportation. It just may be fewer stops or locations, so that we can try and make it cost effective, but we're going to look into other grant opportunities.
But every other school district is in this space, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, sounds like a.
And can you share, Director Dahl, what kind of a cost? What do you have, what are we looking at? I'm sorry,
I don't know if that's something you.
Maybe it's something we can
probably
For
vary.
specifically for transportation or the whole program?
Yeah, well, it just, for me, I'm just the unfunded piece, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know.
For some reason, the number around $30,000 comes to
Okay.
mind for the summer program to
Yeah.
be able to provide transportation.
Right. Okay, I appreciate that, because it's just something that I'm kind of wanting to have in my head, just talking with representatives and things like that. It's just all the little things. I think what happens is we're just finding ourselves with all the little things. Yes, and they make a big difference.
ESY is different. They do have transportation available for ESY. That's something in my previous district we took advantage of, where we were able to pay a portion and essentially take larger buses and go out and pick up more students, where we paid our portion of that. But because the buses were already operating, we were able to kind of tie into it. So that's a conversation we'll have, but we will need to look for some additional funding in order to provide that.
Joel, can I ask a question? Because I remember this from the Southwest Metro. When the funding paid for certain levels of kids with disabilities and other levels, the state had an issue if you put different kids on the same bus.
Yes, that's tricky.
Yeah.
So special ed is a protected bucket of money that's only supposed to be used for students in special education. Sometimes if the route is running and there's 2 seats left, it's not such a big deal. But it would be a little, we'd have to work through some things to see if that would be a possibility. But yes, there is some.
And the other difference is that students who are in ESY are picked up directly from their home location, where with targeted services, we had drop locations. So it might be you have a few blocks to go to get to the bus pickup location. It's not required to be a direct pickup like it is with our ESY program. So as you can see, this summer we had 254 students that participated in our elementary program. We hosted both at Hamilton Ridge and La Ola, which worked out very well because those were also 2 sites that we had kids company this summer. So those kids did not have to be bused, they were already on site. That really helped us with our numbers. We also ran our middle school program. I should just point out too that huge credit to Julie Siegel. She did a ton of work around the elementary program, really organizing that. Her and I interviewed all of the teachers for the summer. She brought on some fantastic people to work there. And then in addition to her, she hired Jenny Witt and Michelle Perkins, who are essentially our on-site supervisors. They could jump and help in and out in any situation. It's hard to find subs for that in the summer, so if somebody called in sick, they were available to jump in and help sub for the day. If we had a student who was struggling and needed to be taken out to do one-on-one time or have some additional support, having them there this year was really, really beneficial to the students in our program. So huge shout out to Julie and her team. The middle school program, Melissa Cannell oversaw our grades 6 through 8 program again this summer. It ran the same time frame as our elementary. We had 60 students that were served this summer, and theirs is really focused around academic skill development, reading, writing, and math. So very similar to what we're doing in our elementaries, clearly at kind of the middle school level. So very similar program. Again, both of these numbers, the 60 students here and what we had for elementary, were an increase of what we had last year. So that's great. It means we're serving more students. They're participating. And the other thing I'll point out is that those who were registered this year and signed up, the attendance was much higher this year than it was the year before. So we had, in many times, we had students who were only coming maybe 1 or 2 out of the 4 days. This year, the majority of them were there all 4 days, with the exceptions of a few vacations and stuff here and there. So I think they enjoyed it. We received great feedback from families on it, and so we're excited to continue that process. And then we also ran programming for our early childhood through, along with ECSE. They did some classes in June and July, kind of throughout the summer. It's not like they go 4 weeks in a row, so they kind of bounce around and do some different activities and things. They serviced 86 students and families this summer in the months of June and July. And then in addition to that, we have our screening appointments that are set up for our 3 to 5-year-olds here coming up. Actually, they already started in August. And that's something that we continually really try to push out there. It's important that we get them screened at 3 and 4. Once they reach the age of 5, at a certain point, we no longer receive funding for them. They still should be screened, and that should be done in the first 30 days of kindergarten. I don't know if you can read it there, but at the bottom, but we really encourage them, the earlier the better. And that does provide funding for us to be able to run those screening appointments. And then just a quick overview of our summer in community education. We had another fantastic summer. I really do have an amazing team. They work very hard, and as you know, summer is the busiest time for our crew, specifically around youth programming and keeping kids busy, keeping them engaged and active throughout the summer. We offered 57 new courses this summer, which in comparison, I think we offered 27 new last year. So we really tried to grow the offerings that we were providing. Overall, we were up almost 700 participants this summer over last summer. So our youth really jumped at ages 6 to 18. Again, driver's education is a very strong program in the summer. Our band lessons are very strong. Our tutoring was down, and that is something that we're going to refocus on again, as we know there are students that really need some additional support. And we're looking at potentially working with Sam and others on how can we better reach these students that need that and be able to provide some opportunities for them to come in. So that's something we'll continue to reevaluate. And then the big thing, again, we had our summer swim program back this year after being shut down last summer due to the road construction and some pool maintenance, building maintenance. We had a little over 1,000 students that participated in that this year, which is down from 2 years ago. We kind of expected that. Having a summer off, people looked elsewhere to find things, and they may have found something that worked well for them, chose not to come back. But we were excited just to get it up and going again this summer. We did have a lot of families that said, we'd love if you go like 2 more weeks, because they took vacations right at the end of July, early August, and so they were hoping they'd have something to come back to. So again, we'll reevaluate that for next summer as well.
Joe, is the 1,042 summer swim program part of the 2,150 youth?
It is not.
Students?
That is
it is
separate.
Not. That's separate.
Yep.
So how does the 2,150 compare to other years, last year and the year before?
That's up about 680 from last year.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow.
Part of it, I would say, is attributed to offering 57 new programs. So there's a lot more opportunities for kids this summer to participate in things. We're really focusing on trying to figure out what's the interest that's out there. What do they want to be participating in, and what's not available currently in our community. So I think they did a great job this summer of really hitting on that.
Mr. Bell, may I ask what's the most popular class?
Oh,
We
boy.
talked about this in committee.
You know, there's a ton of them that they enjoy, but I would say just anything like the coding, robotics, those types of things, kind of that technology where you bring all of that in, those have been really popular. So
What about etiquette? I know that was talked about.
Etiquette's a good one,
Yeah,
too.
talked about at our, which I was really excited to hear that people are
my kids will
excited about
definitely be
etiquette.
involved in that. So, especially
Yeah,
my
where do I sign my
3-year-old.
kids up?
I know, I missed that.
But yeah, no, all of them were, I mean, the attendance actually overall was really good this
That's great.
summer.
Oh, great job.
We canceled very few classes, which is great.
I think- Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You were.
I was just
you
gonna
had
say,
the
I think not only does you guys do an amazing job offering these services, classes for our community, but you also employ a lot of these
We
young
do.
adults in our
Yes.
community, so.
Yep, yep, we do. And I don't have that number on here, but I do for our Kids Go when we get to that slide. So we do employ a lot of high school age students in the summer, college
wonderful.
students who are coming back, so it's a great opportunity for them as well.
I had a question about, the tutors. You said numbers were down
Yep.
there, but did a lot of those students who would normally work with a Laker learner tutor do the other instead?
Like targeted services?
Like targeted services or anything?
They probably
notice?
do. The difference between that is that the tutoring really gets more specific. Clearly, it's one-on-one, so they
Yeah.
can really get more specific with where the student's needs are versus targeted services where it's a little more generalized. You have a classroom of 15 students that you're working with, and they try to individualize it, but I would say that that could be part of it. I also think there's there are other opportunities for families, but what we're really trying to encourage is that these are our own district staff, our own teachers that are providing this, They work directly with our curriculum, they understand it, they know it, and so if anybody can really help those students move along, it's our district staff. So we need to do a better job of really promoting and advertising and recruiting for that and getting the word out there. And it's, I would say, much more cost effective than if you were to go to a private tutoring center or something like that. So really trying to drive that, I think, would be important.
My question piggybacks on the tutoring. Was, when you say it's down, was it the actual students or the available tutors?
No, the number of students. So and it's not huge. Last summer we had 20
Okay.
that
Well, that's
participated. This summer we were at 6.
Okay.
And clearly in the summer it is going to be down a little bit. That number will go back up with the start of the school year, and once they're back in and they determine whether or not they need some support or help, we'll start building on that again. But over the summer, it does provide opportunity for students because they have a little more time and flexibility within schedules. So love to see that go up. Our adult numbers were up too. We had 121 adult participants. Clearly, our summers are really geared towards our youth. Adult programming will really pick up now with the fall programs and through our winter spring. But that number is up over 60 participants from last year as well. So that's exciting to see. It's still a growth area, and Jenny Nagy, who's our adult and community engagement coordinator, is really looking at new opportunities in the summer on ways that we can engage our adults, whether that's partnering with our cities and other organizations, but trying to find ways that we can reach out to our adults over the summer and really providing opportunities that are more just kind of fun and light in the summer versus the, some of the other classes that they might take around learning Word and Excel and some of that stuff. So, but to go up 60 in the adult program area is pretty strong for a summer, so we're excited to see that. And then lastly on here, we include our district facilities. So this is just to show clearly our buildings do not shut down in the summers. We had over 46,000 hours of use by district and community this summer. We had 29 different community user groups. And that is on top of all of the community ed activities that are happening, all of our high school activities that are happening, our camps, PLAY. There is a ton of use in our buildings, so they do not shut down in the least over the summer months. We keep them very active. And then Kids Company, again, this program truly continues to just blow me away. I mean, they do an amazing job. This summer they had 550 students enrolled in pre-K to 6, which was up 50 students over last year. We had to cap it again because we simply ran out of staff to be able to cover it. And just as an example of that, we hired 129 staff for Kids Company this summer. Last year we had 90. So that number went up, almost 40 staff members over last year, and 16 of them are PLHS high school students. So love that they're employing those students. They had an event a week ago. They did a color run, which was fantastic. Every single student just about in our summer program participated, along with 30 or 40 parents. They did it over at the middle school. They did the whole chalk thing. And they've got some fantastic pictures, which I wish I had to show you, but one of the staff members who's a high school athlete on the football team, the kids just adore him, was literally throwing buckets of chalk on these kids, and they just stood there like this, and they were so excited. So Ashley and MJ and their team do just an amazing job in the summer. They were able to bring field trips back this year, which was great. Last year they had a few, but even more now, the further we get away from the C word, the better. They're able to do a lot more trips and just had an amazing time. And then new this summer, they added the summer wind down camp, which is running this week. So it was an opportunity. In the past, we typically didn't program this week as staff were coming back into the buildings. We really had to clear our space out to allow them to get into their classrooms again and prepare for the school year. This year they worked it out, so essentially they're doing field trips every day this week. We had to limit it to 66 students based on we still needed some space to come back and meet on site, and that's really all the room that we had available as teachers were returning. We filled that out with, as soon as that opened, it was full. We had 66 students signed up. That's being held over at Westwood. And today they were supposed to go on an outdoor field trip, but with the heat, that didn't happen, so they made it work back on site, found some space over there and did some fun activities with them. But that was really well received. It was only available to families who were enrolled in our summer program. So it was a first come, first serve, and we took the first 66 that enrolled. So a great opportunity for them this week participate, give a little bit of an extension for families who still needed care yet prior to the start of the school year. So that was our summer program. I will mention just briefly, it wasn't on the slide. We did also partner with ISD 191 this summer. They provide middle school to high school sort of age childcare program. It's called The Edge. It's for grades 7 through 10. They've offered that in the past, and we partnered with them. We provided it in our catalog because we don't offer programming for students that age, childcare. And I talked with them the other day. We had 20 students who were from Prior Lake that participated. She couldn't tell necessarily if they or our students, if they go to another school district, but they live in Prior Lake. And so that's something we're going to continue to kind of monitor. If that's program we need to bring back and provide here, we could. For 20 students, it really isn't feasible for us to be able to provide a middle school age program, but because they take kids from Shakopee, Burnsville, Savage, Prior Lake, they're able to run one big program, and so clearly we're not going to try and compete with that, but we will keep an eye on it, and we'll continue to promote that as an opportunity for our families, so they do have an option. But if it starts to grow, that might be something we look at bringing back in the future.
What does child care look like for grades 7 through 10? Like,
it's a lot of field trips, it's a lot of activities. It's much different than like our K-5. But that is a really tough age group to try and figure out what it is they want to do, what they're excited about, because most of them want to be on their phones or playing their video games, but the goal of that is to keep them more engaged and participating in activities. So it's definitely challenging, but they do a lot of field trips and other activities.
Is that what used to be our wave or?
It was,
Yeah.
yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Any questions for us on the summer programs? It was a fantastic summer. We're excited that the kids are going back to school now and we can take a breather, but it doesn't stop the programming. We still have before, after school programs and evening activities that will continue on, and so we're looking forward to another exciting year.
The only question that I have is with the added interest in, let's say, you know, you've got the coding camps and the various, they're so dedicated, you know, so kids sign up for like a week at a time. And that does attract a lot of middle schoolers and early high schoolers. There's the science camps, there's also the zoo camps that go on that are specific to there where the kids can go there and actually kind of work. Are there other opportunities for us to schedule or partner with those programs?
Potentially, yeah.
Because you always hear from parents of, you know, preteens and teenagers, like parents still work all day and they're looking for something the teenager is going to be interested in going to, and maybe even have work experience with, that sort of thing. So it would be great to.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a growth area for us is that kind of that 6th grade through 10th and 11th grade of providing different opportunities. They do get a lot of it through the high school. You know, there's several clubs and activities that they can participate in. The middle school has some programs like that as well, but that is a definite growth area for our program. We're very heavily focused on that early through grade 5 age student because it is hard. It's hard to find the things that those older kids really want and that they're dedicated to come and do if they're involved in sports or other activities. So finding the time that works can be challenging, but that's an area we're focused on.
and the market was amazing.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Art
market, arts and crafts.
Yes.
Again, I didn't bring enough
It
money.
grew again this year.
I know.
I think we went up
It
by
did grow.
20, And we had several people reaching out to us now that are interested for next year beyond what we had. So it'll grow again for next year. So I will be sure to share that with all of you again.
Yeah, it was my first time going, it was wonderful. Thanks
Good.
for reminding us last
So
time.
fun.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. Next we have, Dr. Thomas is going to discuss our collective strive for excellence.
Yes, thank you, Chair France and Board Directors. Earlier at our retreat, I was just thinking about a lot of things about the board and the governance team. And, I sit in a bit of a curious space because I straddle both as an ex officio member of governance, but my primary sandbox is administration. And I'm thinking about the team that I get to work with every day on the admin side as well as the governance side. And one of the things that I was reminded of was Maxwell's book, The 21 Laws of Leadership. And one of them, he talks about the law of the lid. And we're only as good as the highest player on that team, if you will. And so if you're a level 9 leader and you have a level 5 supervisor, you will only be observed as being a level 5 leader. And, it just really pushes us to be as good as our weakest link, so to speak, right? So we're all striving to being our best. And that's something that as an admin team, we talked a lot about. And I'm thrilled to be able to work with this amazing group of people every single day. And I don't have a chance to brag about them enough because I wouldn't be the leader I am here in this district without the collective efficacy of this amazing team that you'll hear briefly from tonight. And one of the things that we're centered on as a team, we're a very reflective team. Our partnership with Studer goes really deep. Another thing I was thinking about tonight during the retreat was the levels of learning. And, I'm thinking about, there's technical things to learn, and then there's adaptive things to learn. The technical things is like when you have to get an oil change in your car. The adaptive things are when the check engine light comes on in your car. Much more deeper diagnostic to understand what you need to do. And so this team possesses both. And we've gone through iterations of learning, of knowing, doing, and being. Knowing is the real technical stuff. You don't even have to think about doing it. That's just part of the things that's the cost of doing business, so to speak. The doing part, that next level of learning, I would say is more of your compliance leadership. It's the stuff that you know you have to do, you know enough about it, that if you don't do it, things will go bad. But it's not the doing aspect or that becoming aspect. And we've talked a lot about that as a team with regards to our strategic plan. And you all have heard me talk a little bit about this too, particularly even in our sessions, that the strategic plan in and of itself is a great product. And I love the product that we've developed as a community. I really appreciate the process that got us to this product. And there's no perfect plan. There's no perfect words on a plan. But I can tell you that our community really leaned in to having some really good conversations to getting us the plan that we have before us today. And as we've discussed as a team, the plan is not going to be worth the paper it's printed on if we don't become this plan. We know about the stuff that's on this plan. We can do some of the things that are on this plan. But if we're going to become this plan, that's the sleeves rolled up. That's the adaptive work. And so as a team, we also knew the importance of modeling what we expect all throughout the district. And so tonight, you're going to hear just briefly from each senior leader about their commitment to excellence. And academic excellence is something that drives a lot of what we're going to be discussing as a team. Even if I'm not in academics proper, we know that is the bread and butter of this organization, of this school district, this was a big priority for our district, so we know that's going to be really important. And we also know that our actions, our behaviors, are manifestations of our internal beliefs. And when we go down into the core beliefs of accountability, respect, unity, and stewardship, again, those are simple words, but if you become those words, those beliefs, let's see what that looks like in action. And so that's something that we're committed to doing. I'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow morning at our all-staff welcome, because our doing this is in response to what we heard from those that we serve, our staff, our parents. That student survey is something that's very important to this team. And so tonight you'll hear just a little bit about our collective commitment to being excellent as a leadership team, as an admin team, and where our priority focus for the year is going to be. So just wanted to take a few minutes for each leader tonight. You all are getting some previews of this, but this is kind of setting the stage for what is to come from each of us throughout the year this year. And again, being very deliberate in our intentional work so that we're not leaving it to chance. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Christy, I think, first.
You want me to come up there?
Sure, yeah, and we'll just be speaking this. There's no action for you all to take, but we want you to understand kind of where we're centering ourselves as we launch tomorrow morning with our entire learning community.
Good evening. So, we know that our schools are strongest when we are connected with our community and they take an active role in our schools. And so in order for them to feel that way, they need to feel informed and feel like they have two-way communication with us. So in my department, small but mighty department of two, our job is always to, share success stories of what's happening with our students and staff, as well as share, important decisions that are made at the board table and at the school level. So we do that through a variety of ways. Laker Connections and our website are the two primary sources of information that people listed in our last community survey. So we pay a lot of attention to that. And of course, emails always, e-news is always a big focus for us as well. Social media, media requests, and then we've been really growing our events that we're participating in, particularly in the summer, and adding a new one that Joel was speaking about with Joel on the community back to school celebration. That was really, really well attended and great. So that's a great way to get that two-way communication with people and at a little more personal level. So the big change I think for communications right now is the dissolution of our local newspapers. Yes, newspapers are becoming kind of an antiquated source of information, but they're still important to people. And I think people in the community are really feeling that. They like to touch paper and read, they like their newspaper. So we're looking at ways that we can, reach out to those in our community who maybe aren't as connected in our schools with students and serve them with information. And a big way we're doing that is through the public notices campaign. We have that front and center on our website now at the very top, navigation, so people who maybe aren't really familiar with our website and are looking for information can just find that really easy. We've also started working pretty closely with our Savage and Prior Lake libraries. They too are feeling the same things that we are, that people are looking for information. So they've been really great to work with and letting us submit information for them to look at and post on their boards, and even above and beyond what is like kind of baseline public notices, but they've been open to receiving the Laker Connections newsletter, flyers for like the back to school event, that kind of thing. They're willing to, take levy information, just so that everybody can, feel a little bit more connected that way. We have a really strong relationship with our chambers of commerce and the business community, and Dr. Thomas is always doing State of the Schools presentations with that audience as well. So, this year the focus is really going to be just trying to make sure we're balancing all of those different mediums, and everyone likes to get their news a little different way. So it's really, balancing all of it. And then just continuing to look at our survey results to make sure that
people are getting that information, and we don't need to, you know, we always need to adjust along the way depending on what that level is, but that's kind of a quick, in a nutshell, version from communications, so.
I have a question actually regarding communications. So I've read some of the survey results, certainly haven't read them all. And how does, one of the feedback that I've read that was a pretty consistent one was that parents have a feeling that they want to hear more often from their teachers directly about what their kids are doing well versus just, you know, when does that fall under your guidance, or does that fall under, I mean, it's communication, so I understand if it's not yours, but.
That's Director Atkinson, that falls heavily onto the academic side. And this is actually a point of feedback that we received last year, and actually we saw some significant growth in the response rate from that particular metric year over year, because we had great intentionality in our schools last year to making those public calls out, phone calls, emails, when we are observing the desired outcomes for our kids. So that was a very huge campaign, highly successful campaign that we ran last year, and had some noted improvement.
And I'm just going to add continued effort around that. Just last week, I was with a number of our building instructional leadership teams, which I'll reference in my slide, and the SCIP goals, and specifically they were talking about that aligned with the priority of community partnerships. That was the lens under which they were looking at that at the site level, and really making a concerted effort to continue that positive trend.
That's good.
Because it's very true. That is the first place where parents connect with our system.
Thank you. Christy?
Thank you, Christy.
And next we'll have
So Christy and I partnered a lot on this as kind of a joint teamwork on a lot of our data requests. So understanding that public data requests might not seem like it's as involved with student learning and academic achievement, but it's really one of the best ways that we can make sure that we're upholding our accountability and stewardship and responding to those requests. So just in the last, from January 1st through June 30th, just a little breakdown for you, we went through 25,419 pages in Logical alone for public data requests, and we have had 315 hours of work on reviewing public data requests and responding to them. So really making a continued commitment of ours to respond to public data requests accurately and timely within the best, within our means possible. That is something that we continue to see going up, not just with the number of requests, but the volume of them. For example, there was one single request that was over 6,000 pages in of itself. So we're seeing that the volume of the requests are getting very large as well. But making sure that we remain committed to accountability to respond to those in a timely and accurate manner as we go forward. And then in terms of human resources, while a lot of the information that we deal with is sensitive and private data, we do remain committed to accountability and stewardship through a lot of our hiring and recruitment controls with comprehensive school board packet updates, making sure there's detailed staffing data provided to all of the school board members when making their decisions, any hiring information specific to whether hiring the individual that's replacing somebody or if they're a new position. We've expanded our contract settlement memos so that we have more details outlining the total compensation increase, and not just focusing only on the salary or insurance benefits, but really making sure that we're being very clear on everything that's changing, including making sure you all have a chance to see the track changes of the contracts before voting on them, or any periodic reports that we bring forward to the board, whether that's on class sizes or substitutes or leaves that we're experiencing throughout the system. Also, we really focused a lot last year on forming the Policy Advisory Committee, because policy and compliance is a huge aspect of human resources, and looking forward to continuing that work with the committee this year and expanding to make sure we even facilitate that communication between the district and stakeholders as we continue to review our policies moving forward. Another big change that we've made and continue to continuing to make the commitment in our negotiations with our contracts, not only making sure we have that updated on our webpage for our bargaining units, but the employee contracts that are settled are linked out there as well for individuals to see. It's a great recruitment tool for us, so they can see their total compensation when looking at our jobs. But also in negotiations itself, we've really taken, the negotiations team have taken a really strong value statement and being very transparent at the table and making sure we're upfront and providing data in our responses to all of the employee groups we work with. We feel very strongly that that's the best way to respect them, is to make and value them, is to make sure they have all the data we have when we're making our decisions, and just being very transparent through that entire process with them. And the other major piece of human resources that we remain committed to is, as you're all aware, one of the biggest cost with human resources beyond salary is insurance. So continuing our commitment to the insurance committee involvement, making sure we have diverse stakeholders at the table that are engaged and informed as we're making those decisions on premium increases or plan design changes or vendor changes. Hopefully we won't have another one of those for at least 2 to 3 years. But in expanding our presence out with our employees as well. So making sure we're getting meetings with staff available. And then tomorrow, actually, we're really excited that Terry Schoenbar, our benefits specialist, organized a benefits lane for our vendors to be present to help provide information to our employees. So just another way that we're committed to being wise stewardships of our resources and ensuring that our employees understand all that they have available to them to best make sure that they are utilizing those resources that they have. Those are just some of the highlights of what HR will continue to focus on this year.
Oftentimes, Tammy's crew is the parallel partner in the HR conversations, and so Tammy will talk a little bit about what her and her team are committed for this year and kind of their areas of focus aligned to the plan, the strat plan.
We definitely do work very closely with human resources, especially in some of those contract negotiations. We want to make sure that not only our staff being treated as fairly and as generously as we can within the parameters that we have in our checkbook. We have to walk a fine line there. We also are continuing to have our financial advisory committee. They were established to kind of assist in some of the financial analytics, some of our long-range planning, and they're very valuable as a community member. We have quite a diverse team on the committee, so they help. It's hard in the business services office that we don't necessarily get out to the schools and see kids, but the majority of our work is around compliance and making sure that we're good stewards of our resources and that we're optimizing what resources we do have and being very accountable with the dollars that we do spend. Along those lines, we've launched a financial dashboard. We put that out there so that anybody can go on the online tool and look at the detail of either schools or departments of what the revenues and expenses are like. We've had town hall meetings. I think we've done that for the last 3 years. We've done those twice a year. We provide usually around budgeting and forecasting. We certainly answer any questions that anybody has at those meetings. We've tried to enhance the financial packet that we send to the board every month. We've added a monthly financial statement, which I don't think has ever been done before 3 years ago. We've put in a report on the purchases over $25,000. We're gonna try to kind of build on that for next year and maybe do a little different format and work on some procurement processes. We also have added a monthly enrollment report to show every week we get enrollment updated, so I present that every month. I don't think that has been done in the past. Last 3 years, 2 years, I guess it'll be the third year, we've done a 5-year forecast and shown different scenarios with the, what our projections would look like using some various assumptions. And I think as you've heard me say, we don't have a crystal ball. It's, when you build a forecast or a budget or a financial plan, you have to make some assumptions, and we're trying to be very transparent about what those assumptions are, and taking any feedback that maybe we need to adjust some of those assumptions. We certainly have been doing that. And then I think a big thing, we've adjusted our budget timelines, so we've moved everything up so that we can hire earlier and get people established, so we're not losing some good staff to other districts. And just making the process a little more efficient and a little faster. So those are some of the things that we're doing in the business office, and we'll certainly continue to work on and honing in on being a little more efficient in some of our areas.
And I will say, we still have some openings, but compared to where we were 3 years ago and kind of where we're at now, even within special education, we have done an amazing job on filling positions with quality folks too. So big thank you to Michelle, Emily, and Tammy and the teams to, really negotiating good contracts that are competitive and filling critical, hard to fill positions where many of our neighboring districts are really struggling at this point. And we've got kids coming back in a week. So we're really excited. 2 weeks, or something, a week. So, my week, so thank you. And they're not gonna learn if they're hungry. And so Emily.
You just stole my line.
I had an opportunity to join Emily as she, every year, many of us go out to help with the kickoff with our food nutrition services staff, and many of you know I love to cook and I love to eat. And so I'm biased to always want to connect with these folks because they are putting food in the bellies. And just an amazing group of folks that we launched with the other day, and it was packed. Again, my first year here at least, that was not the case. That room did not look that way. I should say the media center, not just a little room, the media center filled with staff. That's not what we used to experience. So thank you to your leadership and your amazing staff. So I'll turn it to you.
All right.
We got to pet a dog that day too.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and we brought a dog in too. All right, so as a support department, although we may not get students' undivided attention in the cafeteria, we do know that hungry kids can't learn. So we really pride ourselves in dedicating our efforts to keeping those bellies full. We pride ourselves in teaching kids where food comes from. We do things like our robust farm to school program, where we do some events throughout the year, not just purchasing farm to school products, but we do events where we're teaching kids, how to husk corn. It was so interesting to me when we started that about 5 years ago. Not many kids knew how to husk corn, and that was my job. I grew up, that was my job. That was the kid's job. So apparently, not everybody does that. So, but it's really neat now because they look forward to it. They know exactly how to do it. Then we've got indoor tower gardens. We're adding another tower garden this year to Glendale. So we would like to add a tower garden slowly, maybe year after year, to each of the elementaries at the very least, and then maybe perhaps at secondary level as well. We also have school gardens, and again, that big C word that Joe had, or you guys had talked about a lot. A lot of our school gardens kind of either got lost in construction or have had to kind of go by the wayside, but we do still have our high school garden. It's up and running. And then we also do work to encourage, that two-way communication with our stakeholders as well. We, this summer, spent a lot of time on our menus and updating that school cafe app. So it's got a lot more information than it has in the past. Things are kind of leveling out now, so we're not having those supply chain issues that we were having before. So we feel much more confident that what we order is what's going to show up at our back door. So we've added a whole bunch of information for families in our school cafe app. I do my annual board reports. We've done some surveys. That's kind of the way that we communicate with our stakeholders. Then, as many of you have heard me say a million times, school nutrition is my favorite topic. So a few years ago, I ran to be the Minnesota School Nutrition Association president, and this is my presidential year. So,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're sure to see you on the news, local news, multiple times again this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have my run.
I want the signed autograph pictures,
Yeah.
headshots. Director Oak coming forward to talk a little bit about equity and inclusion and serving the needs of all of our students and the uniqueness of that.
Right, and I have a line that I always say too that you have heard me say before, that equity work is work we do together. So even though our equity department is just including of our EL teachers, our language liaisons, our American Indian Ed program, we do work very closely with other departments. We work with our social workers very closely to support students who have inconsistent housing or maybe are doubling up with families to provide them support. And then we also work very closely with our deans, and one of our big pieces in our student voice, Caring Committed Conversations. Many of you have been to some Caring Committed Conversations event as well. We also have a very active equity advisory who have been getting involved with our student voice work and also our community work. Last year we brought back community coffees and conversations. And that's an event that we do with the cities to highlight equity topics to our community so they can be aware of some of the things that we're discussing and some of the changes that we have in our schools. Last year we focused on the refugee increase in our community and also our homeless programs to the community, and we'll run 4 more this year as well. We also work very closely in our community with our specific language groups. We try to do our top 5 language groups, but we've been very active right now in our top 4. We have our Russian Parent Advisory Committee meeting that we do, a Spanish Parent Advisory Committee meeting, our Somali and our Cambodian, and those meetings are run specifically in the language of those community groups, therefore limiting the barriers to access for our community there. And we have our APAC community meetings. They happen quarterly, and the exec teams meet monthly. And that's how we all come together to do equity work.
Thank you, Sam.
I would just say one of the things that I'm excited for that Sam and I were talking about is going back to your whole statement that, equity work is our work. That this isn't just about what Sam does, and really looking at ways that we're going to be embedding the work throughout our entire district. You heard earlier around some of the explorations that we're doing around some of the tutoring aspects and really targeting those needs when we look at some of the gaps in our world's best work. It's not
so long.
I'll think of the name of it now. The old world's best workforce, where we have to look at a variety of performance of our students through various demographic groups. And that is something that we are really excited about to really enhance how some of the A&I support will go directly into more direct instruction. So to really help with those learning gaps that unfortunately are continuing to occur with some of our students. So thank you for your leadership and your team's leadership, Sam. Hi, Marcus.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well.
Good. And you all know Marcus, and he leads all of our technology for the district. Talk a little bit about some of the core work areas for his team this year.
And good evening, everyone. I'm here to talk about our technology commitment to excellence and how it ties in with our strategic plan, with our priorities and our core beliefs. So in technology, what we have listed is to procure, deploy, and support hardware and software services that enhance academic excellence. We do that every day, but we're always striving to be better and look for opportunities for growth and improvements in that area. Second bullet point is to maintain fiscal responsibility by maintaining a positive fund balance and implement efficiencies in our offerings and services that optimize resources. I'm constantly working with vendors to, what term I use is sharpen their pencil, give us their best price to the best of their ability. I'm always advocating for that. Fiscal responsibility is huge for us and take that very, very seriously. So it's something that we pride ourselves on and will continue to do. And then third bullet is to collaborate with local, state, and federal agencies to strengthen our cybersecurity posture. We've done a lot of things in the past 12 months, and we're going to continue to do those things. We have partnered with state agencies, federal agencies, and also some information sharing consortiums and to help us in the cybersecurity area and to tighten our posture. It's super important for us to do the very best that we can in this area to protect all of our stakeholders. So those are some of the things that I wanted to highlight this evening. Do you have any questions of me?
Thankful for all that you do with all the technology, and just the safe. I think it's something that is so not my wheelhouse, but just having my identity stolen this last fall, like, it, you know, it was a sliver of the protection that I can only imagine that the team has to do for the whole district.
Challenge,
Yeah.
but we're leveraging all the resources available to us. Any other questions?
Seen your vendor spreadsheet, and it's massive.
Yeah, it is.
And so I do know that you really do try to get the best price.
We do. I think it's really important to build relationships, and when they're not meeting our needs, then we go out to other vendors and see what they can do. So, but building that relationship, I think, is really important.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
Thank you.